Citing sources in public speaking is a disaster. Looking at any textbook out there, the way that sources are meant to be cited in the production of a bibliography doesn't do anything for the focus of what public speaking should be about, the audience. Why are we requiring students to cite sources in MLA format or Chicago format? This is a scholar's format and doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, if you're a student in public speaking, I recommend you think about source citation in a different way. If you try to think about it as some like ancient ritual or something your professor is just making you do because it's an arbitrary requirement of getting a grade, professors, we're just not very good at teaching why this matters or why it's good because we're so embedded in it. Source citation is our currency. This is the way that we exchange information that has value to it, is by saying, I've written this essay and it's been cited 50 or 60 times. And we're building on each other's knowledge. And citation is the way to show how those steps were taken. But a bibliography, unless you hand it out to your audience, which would be super awkward, please don't do that in any speech event you're in, isn't really going to get you much credibility. In fact, people are going to think you are crazy. How do we do it? I say let's abandon the idea of source citation and let's talk about the idea of source transparency. Source transparency is much more accessible, easy to do, and actually builds credibility and persuasiveness into your public address so that audiences can listen to you and believe you and give you the credibility you deserve and give you the ultimate amount of possibility of getting the audience on your side. Every speech you give is meant to get the audience on your side, for them to do something, feel something, think something, or believe something. That's it. It's not meant to change their mind. It's not meant to bend their political will to something new. Those aren't very accurate ways to think about oratory. It's meant to get the audience to move in a way, and to move in a way that you would like them to. Holding this principle in mind, it means that you are as honest and direct and ethical as you can be about where the information came for your speech. How do we do that? Well, you're going to be reading around. You probably have Googled some stuff and read around, and you might, out of deference to the weird tradition of your professor that you have to cite sources, you might say, a website indicates or study indicates. This is not source transparency. It's kind of clipping it, hitting it, like brushing by it a bit, but it's actually horribly ineffective because when somebody says studies say, we immediately assume, and most audiences assume, that you're lying, that you're tricking them. A website, research on a website said, okay, that indicates to me that you are not credible. I shouldn't believe anything you're saying. Instead, you want to move to the next level, which is to talk about publication. Who's responsible for that information? What website is it? What's the name of it? Who put it together? All these things are very easy to find on the website itself. So instead of reading the URL, like according to www. Don't do that. Instead, say the name of the website and what company puts it up, who's responsible for it. And that's a really good way, or the name of the publication. So lots of instructors are scared of the internet and scared of computers. It's unfamiliar to them. So they say internet sources are bad. But that's like saying books are bad. Some books are bad. Anybody can publish a book just like anybody can publish a website. It's just a container. What's important is that you give the audience the chance to judge the quality of what's in that container. Think about it like when you order a bottle of wine at a restaurant. They bring it over, they let you look at the label, they let you taste it, just to make sure that you aren't getting screwed and having to pay a lot of money for a bottle of wine that's garbage. Same thing in speech. Bring it over, let them look at the label, let them taste it. How does this work? Look at the label. What's the publication? And where did you find it? Be very honest about it. If the article is citing a doctor or a researcher and they're interviewing them, use the doctor's name. Say, according to Dr. So-and-so from Johns Hopkins Medical Center, who was quoted in an interview or who said in an interview with the New York Times. That's a wonderful way to do it, because now you're giving the audience full access to why that information is good. Instead of saying, according to the New York Times, da-da-da-da-da, they're like, well, I don't know what the newspaper should be giving me health advice. Who are they? They're just reporters. They should have like bachelor's degree in journalism. That's not worth very much. Instead of that, you get the reaction of, oh, that's a really great source. Wow, they're quoting a doctor from a really prominent medical institution. That's fantastic. Go deep. The person who's being interviewed in that publication said, and that's source transparency. You're giving your audience the maximum amount of clear vision as to what it was or who it was that gave you that information. Why does this work better than that? Well, because it demonstrates humility and vulnerability. When you specifically show the audience the information that led you to your judgment, you are opening yourself up for attack. Now, they're not going to attack you. Don't worry. They're not going to come at you. What it shows is that you have nothing to hide. And that's a wonderful way to be humble and to be open and to be kind to your audience. If you're showing all of your cards, there's nothing you could be hiding because you're giving your audience the same chance to evaluate that quote or that information that you had when you found it on your computer. And I think that's brilliant. Give them the maximum amount of time and the maximum amount of information to come to the same conclusions you did. Shows a great sense of trust, a sense of vulnerability, but it also just shows how compelling your claim is and how they really need to follow your lead. And the more you expose your information like this, the better off you're going to be. Also, rhetoric in public address is often thought of as a exclusionary, individual, independent, single person thing, and it's not. Rhetoric is always cooperative. It's always about sharing between people. So what you're doing is you're asking the audience to cooperate with you on reasoning by walking them through your reasoning from information to conclusion. That's an invitation for them to write the speech with you and to participate in making the speech with you. And that's wonderful too. You're making them co-conspirators or partners or co-creators on your project, your speech. Instead of thinking of them as they're opposite me, I have to force them to change their ways. You're never going to get anywhere with that attitude. Instead, think about how you can show them how you've thought about that information, and then they can reciprocate and say, you're right. I've thought about it too. I saw the same information you did. This also exposes your mind to the audience, showing them how you make decisions and how you reason. And this can be a great demonstration for an audience of what reasoning looks like, what good reasoning looks like, or what your preferred mode of reasoning looks like, which is what we all call good reason is, well, how I feel about the issue is. But we say, it's logical that. And instead of just telling people what's logical, showing them how you've come to a conclusion is the better way to say, this is the logical thing to do. If you just show them how you reasoned from information to conclusion and share it with them, you're going to have the audience on your side in an easier way because everything's open and they feel like they're doing the reasoning too. This is how I made decisions. This is how I judge. Oh, okay. Well, you seem pretty cool and friendly. Like if your introduction does what it's supposed to do, align yourself with the audience. I'm one of you. We're all in this together. We all have the same principles. That's what a good introduction does. Source transparency backs that up by saying, since I'm one of you and I reason this way, that's what logic and reason look like. Gives you the most fair shot and the most ethical shot of getting them to change their ways, change their attitude, and change their mind about what you are presenting. The final thing is it sparks investigation. You're not going to be able to get somebody on your side in a 5 to 7 minute speech, which is probably the only time you're ever going to get unless you become a professional politician or television show host or make your own YouTube channel. Ooh. Yeah, you might want to become a YouTube talking head, and then you have all the time you want. Still, if this video is much more than 10 minutes, people aren't going to watch it. So I don't have a lot of time to get them to think about it. I can spark future investigation by listing out all of my sources. I can spark lots of investigation by saying, well, here's the source. They can go and look it up. Or you could say, go and look at these things, and you'll conclude like I do that blah, 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 blah. The more transparent you are with sources, the more chance you have to actually convince people because they will want to go look it up and read more on it if you tease them in that way and show them, here's a bit of it, but there's more out there. Then they're going to investigate the issue, and who knows, they might become more of an advocate for that issue than you are. Source transparency. That's it. That's all there is to it. And also it really raises the question of evidence. What is evidence? Is expert opinion evidence? Is the opinion of someone who's written a lot of books evidence? Or what about the opinions of someone who's been directly involved in something? That's not technically evidence, but it serves as proof. And proof is the bigger concept, the more important concept for rhetoric. And I'm going to do a video on proof pretty soon. If you liked this video, hang out, look at some other videos, and hopefully this will help you improve your public address ability and your oratorical prowess.